My name is Amon Makon. I want to talk more about pond construction than the models that we have in fish farming. The starting point is when you want to start fish farming, there are three things that you need to consider. The first thing being the temperature within the area. You need to know about the temperature within the temperature range within your area, so that you should be able to choose the type of fish that is that can be farmed within your area. Two, when I talk about the water supply, you need to have good access to water. That's besides council water, be it bore, river, or even the well water. You need to have access to water. Three, you need to have access to the feed that you're going to use. That's before you start. So when you have all those things, they need to come to a point whereby you need to start constructing. If you are using ponds, you need to do proper site selecting. Your pond should be close to home where you'll be able to see it. When you choose the site, you need to clear the land. Cut off the trees at least 10 meters from the pond. Cut off all the trees. After that, you then start excavating your pond. You use the same soil that you move from the market area to construct your pond. At the end, your pond height should be above ground level. After constructing your pond, depending on the type of soil that we have within your area, some soils may need dam liners. You may need plastic liners. The minimum is 250 micron. If you are using 250 micron, it means you need to cover up the liner with earth. Plastic because if you don't do so, it will not break. And then if it breaks, you end up losing a lot of water. After you construct your pond, make sure your pond has a drainage where you should be able to drain. It should be able to drain automatically in case it rains and you are not there to control the water level. It should drain automatically. So you need to put a drainage pipe that's supposed to put on the deepest part of the pond. That's where you put your drainage. After you do that, you then start preparation to stock. You either get your water tested. If the water is tested, pH and ammonia get tested. After it's tested, then you know maybe the parameters are good enough for the fish. If they aren't, you need to work with the water to replenish the quality of the water using agri-lime. A week before you stock, you then need to start preparation to stock. That's when you start pond fertilization. You either use manure, be it goat manure, pig manure, cow manure, even chicken manure. Depends on what you have access to. You can use manure to fertilize your pond. If you are using chicken manure, it's 30 grams per square meter, using the surface area of your pond. If you are using goat or pig manure, it's 50 grams per square meter. You use the surface area of your pond. If you are using cow dung, cattle manure, it's 70 grams per square meter. Then you put your manure in a sack, tie the sack, drop the sack in your pond for a week. During that week, test the color of the water. The color of the water should be at least pea green color, where if you put your hand up to your elbow, call that an elbow test, you should be able to read, to see the lines in your fingers. Put your hand up your elbow, then you should be able to see the lines on your fingers. If you can't see your fingers, it means you've over-fertilized your pond. You then need to replenish the water, add more water, and take off the bag of manure. If the water is now ready for you to stock, you then need to put up an order for your fingerlings. At least 2-3 days before stocking, you should have completed your order. When stocking, if you buy fingerlings, either from a supplier, whoever supplies the fingerlings, they are supposed to be counted, and they're supposed to be of the same sex or same size, for they will be easy to deal with. It's much easier to deal with same sex, especially when feeding, and they won't multiply. You know, you keep your stocking density. Unlike if you put mixed fish, when they start now multiplying, it becomes difficult to feed them if you are using commercial feed. The other thing is, if also you stock mixed fish, when they start breeding, there is also issue for inbreeding. The genetics are affected, and there is also issue for cannibalism. They end up eating the smaller ones, and genetics are affected as well. They won't grow well. So we rather advise people do farm the same sex. If they are all males or all females, fine. They will grow. In fact, all males grow 3 times faster than female fish. So it becomes an advantage to your project. So when you stock, make sure you get your fingerlings from reputable suppliers. They would know, they will be able to quantify and give you the proper numbers that you want. And also the fingerlings will be properly sex reversed, so you get your production going well. Unlike just scooping from other ponds, you may not know if they are affected genetically or not, and you end up losing money. When you get your fingerlings, after purchasing your fingerlings, the most important thing is to get them to take them to your water body. When you get them to the water body, make sure by the time you get there, you acclimatize. Then put the plastic tube in a pond for 30 minutes before opening the plastic tube. After then, you start opening. You then open the plastic tube, let the fish swim into the water body. That's how we stock. So if you stock without acclimatizing, the fish gets shocked and they get stressed and they end up dying. So you need to acclimatize for at least 30 minutes to an hour before you open the plastic tube. After that, you then need to manage your fish to grow. When you manage your fish to grow, we need to look at a few things. Even before you stock, you need to choose a model that you are going to use on your project. These models are determined by three things. One, which is the type of feed that you are going to use. Two, your water supply. Three, your ability to help dissolve oxygen. So when you stock fish, before you stock, you need to be certain enough about the model that you are choosing. If you know you're not going to have a lot of water, but you have commercial feed, it means your stocking density should be the minimum. That's 5 to 10 fish per square meter. We'll calculate the stocking density using the surface area of the pond, regardless of the depth. But there's a point they would also need to go to the surface area to look for dissolved oxygen. So they should be able to fit in on the surface area of the pond. So 5 to 10 is the maximum that you can put if you are doing what we call the simple model, if you are using commercial feed. Then if you have a lot of water, you can then stock maybe 15 to 25 per cubic. We're not talking about per cubic, but you should be able to push the waste off from the pond. So you can stock up 15 to 25 per cubic. Then if you have additional aeration, like what we call aerators, you can stock even 30 to 60 per cubic. Some will go even 50 to 100 per cubic, depending on their water supply. So you need to have feed, water supply, and additional aeration for you to have to increase the stocking density. In short, when you increase your stocking densities, your production cost goes up. So you need to make sure you have all those things before you start putting a lot of fish in your pond. After you stock, you then need to feed them to grow.
Welcome to fish farming training. My name is Felicity Dobe, and today I'll be taking you through water quality and pond culture. We'll start by defining our key terms, which is water quality and pond culture. Water quality is a measure of suitability of water for use in aquaculture, and this includes its physical, chemical, and biological aspects. And pond culture is an aquaculture production system which is designed to stabilize food supplies by the farming of fish in ponds. It is the basic keeping of fish in ponds for human consumption and for supply of fish products. And there are three main types of fish farming methods which are practiced globally, and these include monoculture, which is the rearing of a single species of fish in one pond, and polyculture, which is the rearing of 2 or more species in the same pond at a given time. For example, the keeping of Nile tilapia, that is our breams, and the catfish in one pond. And the third one is the monosex, which is the rearing of single sex of fish in a given pond. For example, you can keep all males only or all females only in same pond. So there are several methods that are used to sustain fish farming systems, and these include cage culture, whereby we use cages for the rearing of our fish, and pond culture, whereby we'll be using ponds for the rearing of our fish. And the third one that is commonly used is the tank culture, whereby we use PVC tanks for rearing of our fish. And this will focus mainly on ponds. And there are several types of ponds, which include biological ponds, koi ponds, fish ponds, ornamental ponds, plant ponds. So our main focus will be on fish ponds. and several species of organisms they can be cultivated in ponds, especially the freshwater species that are suitable for stagnant and semi-stagnant waters. Since in our pond there will be no flowing of water, it will be just trapped in our pond. So the only time it is moving is when we are draining the water or adding more fresh water. So that's semi-stagnant. There are several types of fish ponds. The design depends on the use of the pond. For example, there are spawning ponds, which are used for egg production and the keeping of small fries, thus for breeding of fish, and nursery ponds, which are used for the production of juveniles, and brood ponds, which are for broodstock rearing, and storage ponds, which are used for temporarily holding our fish prior to transportation. And then we have grow-out ponds, which are used for keeping fish that are still yet to grow until they mature. So when we construct our ponds, we have to first select a suitable site which is in close proximity to our homesteads for increased security measures and also for easy management. The size of the pond depends on the number of fish to be kept by the farmer, and also is determined by the space of the available land and also the capital that is available. So when we construct our pond, it should have two different sizes. That is the shallow end, which ranges from 0.8 meters to 1 meter, and the deeper end, which ranges from 1.2 to 1.5 meters. So at the shallow end is where we insert our inlet pipe, the one that feeds the water into the pond. And at the deeper end is where we insert our outlet pond at the bottom of the pond, which is used for draining of the water. And the walls of the pond should be high above ground level. Since our fish, they are upstream swimmers, they swim in the opposite direction as the water flows. So we have to keep the walls up high above ground level to avoid any inflows during the rain seasons. And there are several requirements for fish that are being kept in the pond culture. For example, we have to use boil water. Boil water is safe. It doesn't have any chemicals, unlike our council water that contains chlorine and other chemicals that are used to disinfect and treat our water. Especially chlorine is not good for the gills. It damages the gills of the fish. And our pH ranges from, our pH should be ranging between 6 and 9, with optimum being 7 and 8. And our temperatures, they should be a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 33 degrees Celsius. So when you stock your pond, you have to fertilize it in preparation for stocking, so as to promote growth of algae in the pond. So you have to fertilize it 2 weeks before you stock. You can use manure. You place them in a sack, perforate it, allow it to float on top of the water, and the manure will be flowing out of the sack at a constant rate. So you can use chicken manure. You could apply 50 grams per square meter. For cow manure, you should apply 70 grams per square meter, and for pig manure, you use 30 grams per square meter. So when you are stocking, you can stock using a simple model. You can stock 5 to 10 fish per square meter. And when you stock your pond, you use the shallow end, the one which you said it ranges from 0.8 to 1 meter. So that's where you stock your fish. You open the plastics and allow the water to flow in the plastics, while the fish, they swim out of the water, out of the plastics into the pond. So for your fingerlings, you have to stock fingerlings of the same age when you're stocking your pond, so that you know the type of the feed that you'll be administering to the pond. And also for commercial purposes, you can stock all males, the ones that would have been sex reversed using the hormone testosterone, all males, they have an advantage that they grow 3 times more faster than the females. This is because the females, they have a time period where they will be focusing on breeding. That's the laying of eggs and projecting the fries. So for good yields and better yields in a short space of time, you should keep all males. So when you stock your pond, you should know how to properly manage your fish. Thus, you should know you should feed them with proper feed at the given time. For example, when you receive them, they'll be ranging between 1 to 1.2 grams, and they will be eating starter 2. You feed them starter 2 for 3 weeks. You go on to starter 3, and you feed them for 3 weeks again. From there, you feed them with juvenile 1, and then juvenile 2 will go on to grower. So you should know the type of feed that you are to administer at a given time. Also knowing the right quantities so as to keep your water in good conditions. Since excess feed goes down to the pond and fertilizes it, thus it will promote unnecessary growth of algae. So you have to manage your water conditions, essential parameters, that is pH. You have to keep it within a good range, that is between 6 and 9, with optimum being 7 to 8. And you have to keep your dissolved oxygen at rightful levels, that is above 3 milligrams per liter. And you also have to keep your water clean. You conduct elbow tests. You dip your hand up to elbow length, and you slightly lift your palm. You should be able to see the lines that are in your palm if your water is clean. But if you are not able to see them, then that means your water is dirty. You now need to clean the water. So our water our water quality is the key to good fish product and the good quality of meat. So you should know how to communicate with your fish. If there is something wrong within their environment, that is in the water body, they communicate with you. So you should be able to communicate with them. If there is high pH, they lose their appetite. And they will not eat. If there is high ammonia in the pond, they will swim, rubbing themselves to the edges of the pond, because ammonia makes the skin get itchy. So they'll be trying to remove the itchiness by rubbing themselves to the edges of the pond. So if you see them behaving in that way, you have to add more fresh water and drain the water that is in the pond, so as to neutralize the ammonia levels that are in the water. If your dissolved oxygen is low in the pond, your fish, they will not do any activity. They will just rest at the surface, and they will be piping. That is, they will be slowly opening and closing their mouths, trying to attain dissolved oxygen at the thinnest layer of the surface. So when you see them doing that, you have to implement measures to supply dissolved oxygen to your pond. You can either add more water to the pond. You place your inlet pipe about 1 meter above the pond level, and you allow the water to splash into the pond. At that time, it will be creating bubbles. Hence, it will be adding more dissolved oxygen to the pond. Or you can use a mechanical aerator, that is either a 2-wheel pedal, 3-wheel pedal, or a 4-wheel pedal aerator. This is now depending on the size of your pond. But for a 4-wheel pedal aerator, it covers a total surface area of 1,000 square meters. So you have to know the type of aerator that you'll be using. Or you can use irrigation pipes. You drain the water. They'll be sucking the water from the pond and splashing it, spraying it on top of the water. so that allows to help dissolve the oxygen in the pond. So when your fish try and communicate with you, you should act accordingly and rectify what they'll be communicating with you. Your pond should have good drainage systems and good water supplies, so that you keep your water in good quality. When your fish they have now reached maturity stage, that is within a period of 6 months, they will be ranging within 350 to 400 grams. So you are now ready for harvesting. When you harvest, you have to starve your fish for at least 48 hours. This is to avoid loss of indigested food, and also to not introduce stress in our fish. When your fish they are stressed, you do not apply any chemicals to the pond. For some other chemicals, they could be hazardous to fish. So you use what is called a salt bath. In a salt bath, you take you dissolve coarse salt and allow it to, you dissolve it in the pool. At the same time, you'll be adding more water to the pond. So our fish, they tend to swim towards fresh water. So as they will be swimming towards fresh water, they will encounter the salt, and this helps clean their systems, hence reducing stress. So to avoid any stress during harvesting, you should starve them for at least 48 hours and use a seine net to scoop the fish. When you harvest, it's either you are harvesting partially, that is for sampling. When you are doing sampling, you have to use you have to do a salt bath so as to reduce the stress in the fish, since you'll be catching them, weighing them, and then returning them to the pond. So you have to cleanse their system and reduce stress. Once you scoop your fish from the pond, when they're going for the market, I said you can either, you will be harvesting either partially, or you are harvesting totally, removing all the fish. So when you are harvesting totally, that's removing the fish for the market, you have to prepare them to go to the market. Thus you can take them to the market as war-round fish, or you can gut them and remove the guts as soon as they are taken out of the water, so as to preserve the good quality of the meat. Once you do so, you have to freeze them and make sure you deliver them in the night or early in the morning when temperatures are still low, to avoid ruining our meat quality by heat. You can add value to your fish, thus by gutting them, or you can make fillets, or you can descale them and take the scales to the textile industry, or when you gut them, you can supply the intestines to the fish oil making companies. So every part of the fish has its own use. Like scales are used in the textile industries, and intestines are used in the making of fish oils.